Hallelujah, thine the glory. Hallelujah, amen. Hallelujah, thine the glory. Revive us again.
I'm thinking today about a passage of Scripture in Paul's writings, Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1. He said, Brethren, if any man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one. And then this interesting clause at the end, in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Now, can you think of examples of situations where in trying to win a brother back who is strayed away from the Lord, I mean, he was a Christian and he was faithful, but now he's not faithful to the Lord, and I don't want him to be lost. So I go to try to win him back. But the warning here is in so doing, I've got to be sure not to be pulled into that sin myself. Can you think of circumstances where this might be really relevant, really important to know? Well, I think of a case, for example, I mean, maybe you think about alcohol or drugs and in trying to win a brother back. You be careful now that you're not tempted to be part of this. Or perhaps your brother has gotten involved in some sort of sexual immorality. You be careful in trying to retrieve him back, bring him back from that you don't yourself be tempted to go into that sort of thing. Maybe you think about worship practices. You know, a lot of churches today have gotten into an entertainment motivated or entertainment-based worship where really it's not as much about what does God want anymore. It's about what would we like, what do we find more entertaining. It really calls into question, of course, who we're worshiping when we do that. But suppose a brother gets wrapped up in that. He gets wrapped up in that kind of entertainment-based worship in a man-made religion. In pursuing him, I would need to mind this verse, to consider myself lest I also would be tempted to follow along with that ungodly practice. But I want you to think about one more that I think is perhaps more common than any of these that I've said already. It has to do with parenting and this. Suppose I raise my children, I raise them the best I can to be Christians, but it doesn't work out that way. And my grown son or daughter eventually leaves the faith, becomes unfaithful. They're out of my house, but what if I'm tempted to compromise my faith in an interest in trying to win them back? I don't want to push them away. I don't want to do anything that would push them farther away from being Christians. So maybe I should make compromises in hopes of winning them back. It's just what Paul warned against. Take, for example, here's someone who says, well, now, when I travel to go and visit my son and his wife and their children, well, of course, they don't go to worship, and so when I'm there, I don't go to worship either because I don't want to make a scene. Or maybe it would be in the reverse. When my son and his wife and children, when they come to visit us, sometimes they come on Sunday afternoons, and we have worship on Sunday nights, but I don't go because I don't want to offend them. They're usually only going to be there for a short amount of time, and I fear that I would offend them if I said, now, I'm going to leave. I want to see you, but I'm going to leave. I knew of an instance where a man's son was an unfaithful member of the church, and sadly his girlfriend became pregnant, not married, out of wedlock. And when I was talking with this man, he said that when his son and his girlfriend would come to visit them, very often they would stay in their home for several days at the time, and they would sleep in the same room. I said, what are you doing? You can't mean that. Well, he said, I'm just afraid that I would offend them. And you know what I'm hoping to do is to win him back to the Lord and maybe one day convert her. So I just feel like I have to be careful. So I just let them sleep in the same room together. Listen to me. This is the heart of this verse. Let me repeat it to you. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1, because it's a mindset that we really need. Brethren, if any man be overtaken in a fault, that means he goes back into sin in some way and he's entrapped by that. Ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. The solution is this. The meaning of the verse is this: I've got to stand for what's right. I will never, ever win back my wayward children if I compromise my faith. I can't show them a weak faith. I've got to show them a determined faith. Son, I would say, it's almost time for worship. I'm so glad you came to visit. I'd love for you to go with me, but if you can't go with me tonight, I tell you what, I'll be gone for a little over an hour, and when I get out, why, I hope you're still here so that we can visit some more. Or, you know how much I love you, but the way you and your girlfriend are living is sinful, and you can't live like that in this house, because, see, this house belongs to God, and it's for me and my house. We're going to serve God. You see, we've got to take a stand and make sure our children know that however things may change in this life, however people may live around them, there's at least one place they know that's always going to be faithful to the Lord. It's Daddy's house, it's Mama's house, and we're not going to compromise that for anything or anybody. Have a good day.
Amen. Hallelujah. Thine the glory. Revive us again.